This is an overview of my typical AR workflow. I start by setting up goals. Then I move on to sketching and storyboarding. Once my plan is in place, I create a prototype and then test it in physical space to make sure my plan will work. Next, I design and create my actual assets. I lay them out in 3D space using Adobe Aero. Then I add interactions and animations. Finally, I test everything to make sure it's working, and then it's time to share with others. Whenever you start a project, it's important to establish goals, your goals as well as the audience's goals. This will bring clarity to your decision-making throughout the development process. After you have your goals established, the next step is to ideate. Honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of the process. It's the part where you get to let your imagination run wild without having to figure out the nitty-gritty practical how-to details. I'm an illustrator, so I always start with drawing. I typically create an inspiration illustration that encapsulates the vibe or aesthetic, and then some of the main characters or objects that will be within a scene. I then use this as a guiding document as I move into the rest of the development process. Once you've done that, it's time to storyboard. This is your experience blueprint. It's the phase of the project where you sketch out all of the key moments, the overall story arc, planning out how the participant will get from point A to point B, as well as any important interactions or animations that might occur in between. These don't need to be polished. The idea is to get it down quickly and effectively so you can iterate. Once you're happy with your storyboard, it's time to test your plan through prototyping. You could easily create prototypes with basic shapes, and luckily enough, Adobe Aero comes with a bunch of great built-in assets. I typically lay out my key elements and then attach their interactions. Then it's time to test that skeleton of an experience on a mobile device, in physical space with my own body. I found that you can't really intuit what these spatial experiences will feel like, so you really have to try them in space. Once you've tested your experience and you're happy with how the basic composition and the interactions are working, it's time to actually design and create your assets. This could be done in Fresco, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, Substance 3D Modeler, Painter, or Dimension. Honestly, there are tons and tons of options. Here is a list of the current supported file types. Now that your assets have been created, it's time to import them and lay them out in a 3D scene using Aero. To import, simply drag and drop the files right onto your 3D workspace, or use the plus button in the upper left-hand corner. The next tool in your toolbar is your cursor, which you'll use to select things. Below that is the Move tool, which allows you to position your objects along specific axes using these arrows. Next is the Rotation tool, which is pretty self-explanatory. Then the Scale tool, which allows you to control size. Alternatively, you can control all of those things in the Properties panel in the lower right-hand corner. The next three tools in your toolbar allow you to navigate your 3D environment. Orbit allows you to pivot around the scene. Pan allows you to move up and down or side to side. And last, Dolly lets you zoom in and out. Personally, I always start my layouts on the desktop version of Aero because it allows for easy importing and a whole lot of precision. Then I test them in the real world from multiple angles using the mobile version. This workflow allows for efficiency, easy precision, and ensures that it's reading properly in the physical world. Now that you've created your layout and you've tested it to make sure that your composition looks like you want it to, it's time to add interactivity and animations. Both of these are created using the Behavior Builder in Aero. On the desktop version, it's in the lower left-hand corner. I'll go into more detail about how to use this powerful tool in later videos, so be sure to check the description below for those links. Now that you have the entire composition laid out with interactions and animations, it's time to test it, and test it well. As I mentioned, I typically check the compositions from all angles. If it's a nonlinear experience, I will change the order of interactions just to ensure that no matter how the participant uses the experience, it will make sense. I also test on multiple phones and tablets if I can, to ensure that it will run well even on older models. Then I perform user testing. I ask my very kind and patient friends and family to test it for me while I watch. Other people's perspectives are often surprising and insightful. You've been looking at this project for a long time by this point, so a fresh pair of eyes is invaluable and illuminating. Now your hard work is paid off and it's time to share it with other people. In Aero, simply go up to the little share icon. Then you can choose to either export, which will create a .real file that you can store on your hard drive, or you can select Create a Link, which will let you create both a URL and a QR code. And if you ever need to access that link, click on Manage Shared Links.